Alright, here we are at Road America for another track guide. One of my most favorite tracks, just because it's a really fun place no matter what car you're driving. I just like this track. So let's jump into it. You can see the weather there. Anyways, keys to the race card. Number 1, you can see what it clearly says. What tires, because they're not necessary, at least in the A car. Just like Sonoma, they don't wear very much, and you can push as hard as you want. As long as you don't overheat the tires, you can pretty much maintain pace all race, which is 31 laps for this series. And on to number 2, it says use your tools. What I mean by that is brake bias. Your actual brake pedal itself. You can use shifting to manipulate how the car drives. Throttle pedal, all this can be used to help yourself around this track. And finally, it's still a road course, so there's going to be dive bombers. Quite easy to lock up your brakes. If you don't set them correctly or you get on the brakes too hard, it'll lock up probably into missing a corner. So I think that's pretty much it. We're going to do Pitt Road, kinda, and we'll get to the lap. Alright, here we are coming to Pitt Road. As you can see, it branches off to the right. Quite a bit uphill elevation. There's your yellow cone. Here we go down the really long Pitt Road. You can see it's still an uphill till about halfway, and then it starts to flatten down and kind of slope the other way now. There's your speed limit cone, and there's your pit exit cone. So we'll go ahead and just get to the lap, and yeah. Alright, fixed setup, fixed weather. Track temp of 119, so keep that in mind, and the changes I made to the fixed set, you'll see on screen because I pretty much changed every changeable thing on the fixed setup. So you see these on screen. Steering ratio 287, or in metric you'll see it there. Front master cylinder is 27/32 of an inch. The rear master cylinder 7/8. Brake bias is 48.5, and there we go. So we'll see how this lap was done, and we'll talk about it. So here we go. You'll also see some foot inputs. Obviously they're virtual, but that's more or less what's happening in the car. Alright, so while the lap is playing, I'm going to put in big text what gear it's in. You can see it on the dash as well. It's a 5-speed gearbox, but you can see we're in 4th gear here, and that's kind of where I leave it on the front stretch. So let's just see how it's done, and we'll talk about it. And there we have it for a 2:10.7, which could have been much quicker. Probably down to like a 3 or 4, but I butchered the second half of the course, so back that up. Alright, as you can see there, I just kept it in 4th gear. Never really went to 5th. Yeah, there's a lot of extremes. You know, tons of braking and tons of throttle. That's just kind of on me, but yeah. Alright, so we're going to make our way into one. I'm going to keep an eye out for some things to help me gauge my brake zone. So I'm going to start slow-moing it right about here. Let me pause. Because I'm looking at the billboard, pit cone, Coca-Cola symbol, you know, this whole section. And I'm not really braking yet. This is kind of where I want to start to concentrate on making the corner. This is just my cue to get ready. So you got the billboard, right? Pit cone, Coca-Cola, weird color thingy next to the end of the fence, I believe. Recent car. So I'm just keeping an eye out for that. So let me slow-mo it because I'm going to start braking. And I'm looking at the left here, the corner of my eye. So right here, there's an end of the fence there on the left, which you can see like right here. Once my A-pillar's out of sight, or covering it, so like here and probably 2 more clicks, I'm going to start braking. Pretty heavily I'm going to brake here. And I'm also looking at these cones, 3, 2, and 1, but that's just more of a turning point because you got to brake well before that if you're going to make the corner. So I'm in 4th gear, and you see how high the RPMs were. Extremely hard on the braking. Down to 3rd gear. I let it wait a little bit before I go to 2nd gear. You can see I was threshold braking, but the minute I start the downshift, I let off just a tiny bit to make sure it doesn't wheel hop in here. Once I reach that curb, that's when I'm turning in. So I'm reaching this curb here on the left. Once the front end of my car comes close to that, you see I'm turning already. Aiming for the apex. I was doing some trail braking there, but I wanted to roll and use some of this curb in 2nd gear. Once you get to the apex, throttle up. The rear end does want to brake loose, but you want to stay hard on the throttle. We're going to upshift to 3rd. And here's another brake zone that I actually have a lot of trouble with. There's a 2 marker there and a 1 way down there. You can't see it. There's the 2. And the 1's like somewhere in this general area. And here I'm kind of using the wall. Would you see the end right there? And some of this logo here on the right. So I got to do frame by frame because I'm a little unsure here. But you can see what I was saying here about that wall. There should be a 3 marker. Yeah, there it is right there. But you're well past it by the time you need that. But I guess more or less when your car is alongside that, that's where you're going to be to use them as your brake reference. So let me slow-mo it. So there's a 3, we're well past the 3 before the 2, before the end of the wall, and again, threshold braking, again from 3rd gear now, down to 2nd. Very similar to turn 1, just a little bit slower. Trail brake a little bit, start turning in when you feel like you need to. I didn't explain that good enough. I guess you see the road starting to curve naturally. That's when you do it too. Same thing, let it touch the curb, let it roll a little bit if you can. The closer to the curb, the more it rotates. Use all the track, 2nd gear, up to 3rd. And another situation of letting it scream in 4th gear. And we're into one of the heaviest brake zones of all, and one of the weirdest. Now you see a portage on there, I believe, unless it's like something else, I can't really tell. There's a 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 marker. I'm more or less braking at the 4. Maybe a little bit before it. Probably between the 4 and this thingy. So let's see. I'm in 4th gear screaming. Right at the... on portage. I guess it was before. Well before the 4. Hard on the brakes. Again. 4th down to 3rd. Wait on it a little bit to get to 2nd. That's just for stability. And you kind of want to brake straight here. The car gets really weird. Under braking, like squirmy. Down to 2nd, by the way. You can see the 1 marker. Now I'm aiming for my right side, just on the other side of this curbing. That just sets up your left-hander. Still hard on the brakes. Once we're there, we're going to turn in. Trail brake again and let it release. Get as close to the curb. Try not to get in the grass because that will spin up a wheel and you'll have a bad time. Now you can go to 1st here. I don't recommend it, but you can. We're going to use all the track, including the exit curbing. hard on the throttle, then hard on the brakes again. So here we're hard on the brakes. I left it in second gear from back in the previous corner, so this one's a little trickier. Honestly, I don't have a great reference point, but I've been using that radical logo on the right to tell me when to get on the brakes, and by the time my brain processes it, it can work out. So just look at that for a second, kind of memorize it. It's with a 60 field of view, single screen. So we're braking pretty hard, not too hard, and as close to the grass as you can get. Just make sure you don't hit it because you're going to have a really bad entry. You'll probably kill yourself here. I've done it many times in practice. That's why I know. Little trail brake, let it roll. Again, using the curbs, kind of lets it rotate more. For the fixed set, you can use a lot of exit curb as well. So here we're going to stay in second. You can shift to third if you want, but I stay in second. And what I'm doing here, once I get my car pointed nice and straight of where I want it to go, then I get on the brakes just a dab to set it up for the right-hander. You'll see an odd-colored piece of wall, right here, and right here are all different. You see there's a section here, here. I missed it a little bit, but you get the point. So once I aim it there, I'm going to dab the brake a tad, just to set up the right-hander, let it roll. Get as close to the curb as possible without hitting the way outer edge of it, because it will upset the car. And stay in second. Use all the tracks, some throttle control required. Gotta shift to third. Now here we're looking at the right. You'll see another 4, 3, 2, 1 marker. We're aiming at number 3 there. This one. So hard on the brakes once I'm right there. And number 3, again, just as hard as before. Threshold braking. All the way down to second again. Another corner where you can probably go to first if you mess it up. So we're going to turn in again once we come into contact with that curb on the right. Aim for the inside curb. You want to let it roll when you get there. Use some hard throttle to make use of that turn, but you got to be ready for the steering. Input after. Now here, I'm waiting to shift when I get well in to the corner under the Speedville bridge. So right here, and once I start to feel it rotate, I'm going to shift to third. Again, you can leave it in second, but I don't really see much of a benefit. Maybe the car's tight. I go to second gear. You can see I sort of did a diamond. And that's what we're setting up for the late exit of this corner. We want to get close to that curb for a slightly straighter launch. Use all the track. Careful with the exit. Here's another one that's optional. I went to fourth gear. You can scream it out in third, which helps it get through there pretty solid. Helps it rotate better, but I opted for fourth because just easy to cut out a shift. So I'm looking in between the 1 and 2 marker. We're going to brake hard enough to get it to slow down, but briefly. Once you get it rotated and turned in, let off and get as close to this curb without going over it. To the inside. Use all the track. I'm in fourth. The car's going to push out a little bit. It's going to bounce a little bit on the curbs. Nice and straight. And we're coming into one of the hardest brake zones, or final hard brake zones. And you can see another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 marker at the 5 when I see it in view. When I'm straightened up with the road, I'm getting hard on the brakes. We're going to go down to second gear. Well, third, then second. By the time we get to the number 2 marker. Again, once you feel the car start to turn, you want to turn into that curb. Typical, apexing stuff. And here you want to use all the exit curb. I overdrove it, so I pushed the nose bad in that corner. And here, you want to straighten up. Once you get pretty much straightened up, turn in, let off the gas, temp brake. Stay in second gear, use all the curb, use all the exit curb, the car bounces a tiny bit. Once you hit the limiter at 9,700 RPM, get on the brakes, because it's going to happen. Nice straight braking. You don't want to turn too much here because you can lock up the right front. Once you get along this curb, you should be able to release the brake if you hit it right. Let it roll to the center. Obviously, I missed the corner. I overdrove it because I was in a hurry. Use all the corner, up to third gear. We're going to be in fourth, which I missed. Shift again. There's another 10th or 2 gone. And there you have it for a 2:10.7. And that'll do it for this drag guide. Trying to be as detailed as I could. One of my favorite tracks. Really fun track. I hope it never loses this race date for a shitty street course that's not existing yet. But anyways, Sim Racing Chewy side.